Insulin sensitivity takes time. Insulin resistance didn't happen overnight. 45% as a standard is a minimum for carbohydrate intake. Plant foods contain everything we need to be healthy individuals, and that's really where the art comes in about how to eat fulfilling life with plants. We run macronutrient needs based on the human being that you are, not because somebody on social media convinced you that low carb is what you have to do to get perfect glucose numbers.
Hi, Lauren.
Hey,
Hello, hello.
Kylie.
Hi. We're here for another exciting episode and discussion today. I'm really excited about today's topic, and well, not topic actually. I'm excited that we're going to be answering some questions from some of our listeners, and what you're going to hear about today are real people's questions. And I'm really that it just like when I saw the questions coming into the email, my heart was so full and so warm because it was great to see that people are wanting to hear more about these topics. So today is a Q&A, and I think that it's a great way for us to address specific questions, but also sort of even talk about broader topics around some of these questions. So a little bit today, you're going to hear about some nutrition labels and, what types of foods to be looking for in the grocery store. We're going to be talking about some pernicious anemia or anemia and A1C. That's going to be super interesting. And we're going to be hearing a success story and some things that we wanted to share from a listener success. So that's on the agenda today. But anything else that you'd like to share before we get started today, Lauren?
Sounds like a plan. I think it's really great to bring listeners forward, the things that they're sharing with us. It can answer more than what is just personally being offered up that they were looking for answers for. So hopefully there are a number of you that this resonates with, and it also encourages some more of you to engage with us, and knowing that we're going to do our best to try to provide more information where information is due.
Absolutely. Well, this actually also brings to mind our group coaching, which one of the fun things about group coaching is that a lot of times one person will ask a question and all the other hands will go up like, oh my gosh, I have that question too. Or like, oh, I didn't even know I had that question. Right. So one of the best things about this idea of like community learning or knowledge, gaining information in this way is that you may not even know that this is a question you had until somebody else asked it. So, and that always makes for fun conversation in group coaching. So we're going to sort of, move forward from there. But anyway, so we'll just launch into this because our first question is really, really interesting, and it led us to some really interesting conversation as well. So I'm just going to read a little bit of the email. This is an email from a listener who wrote in saying that they were asking if you ever see an A1C trend upwards while fasting glucose trends downwards, even when you're making dietary improvements. So that was sort of the context of the first question. And this person's saying that they mostly eat whole food plant-based for about a year and a half, and they've been improving their diet in that direction for over 4 years, for 4 to 5 years from the standard American diet. Not diagnosed with diabetes, but does have a history of Hashimoto's and pernicious anemia. With no other health problems. And all cholesterol numbers and blood pressure are good and improving to optimal. So, what I'm hearing is that this person is not living with insulin resistance. Or those are forms of ways that insulin resistance can show up. But she does say that A1C is tested every 3 years, and most recently went from 5.2 to 5.5, even though fasting blood glucose reading is consistently in the mid 70s. So was just surprised to see that elevation in the A1C. And it sounds like she's looking for more information because physician or her GP said that the increase was likely from the carbohydrate. So like eat less carbs was the recommendation from the doctor. So she's asking, what are your thoughts on this? And should she get it retested?
Well, the first thing that, of course, I have a deep sigh is that we have a general practitioner with a very quick and short answer about nutrition that isn't fair, and it's misleading, and it's not a thorough answer. It's a quick, incorrect assumption that she's doing something with food that is incorrect. That's the first problem, is that's not okay to do to someone, anyone, diabetes or not. And I think a lot of people are used to that response, unfortunately, from a non-nutrition expert. Let's keep in mind that the MD is not a trained nutrition expert. But what's also not fair is saying back off on carbohydrates, because vegetables are carbohydrates, fruit and whole grains and beans. There's nothing unhealthy about whole foods carbohydrates. And that can lead someone down a really vicious relationship with carbohydrates. So I read into that from a very further position as a dietitian, and I don't like hearing things like that. But the second thing is that it's just not correct to stop that short when someone has pernicious anemia, which is when we're looking at B12. It is something where B12 insufficiency can potentially lead to a false high with a hemoglobin A1C test. And that would have been a more accurate and potentially kinder thing to deliver to this person, is to let them know that, hey, actually, this might be what we're looking for. Let me maybe soothe the situation by not trying to shame you into something that you may or may not be doing right with carbohydrates, and instead provide information about the situation here with your A1C and its relationship with anemia. There's something to that.
Absolutely. And interestingly, something that maybe it would be nice if your doctor may have also shared with you is that there is also another test that will test. It specifically is intended for people who are anemic or have pernicious anemia or moderate to severe anemia. And it's called a fructosamine test. And it does the same thing. It measures your average blood glucose over the course of time. It's just that the time is much shorter, because the cycle of blood cells, it matches more the cycle of your regular blood cell degeneration. So it measures your blood glucose over 3 to 4 weeks versus 3 months, which an A1C does. So you could also get a fructosamine test, and that will give you a much more accurate number of your average blood glucose when you have anemia, or specifically pernicious anemia. So I would recommend asking a doctor, maybe this doctor, maybe another doctor, for a fructosamine test. We have had members of our community who have found that a similar situation, right? Like, yikes, my A1C is not matching what I'm seeing in my blood glucose readings. Why is that? And then we dig a little deeper, and then they've gone on to have their fructosamine tested, and it actually shows that it's much more correlated to their blood glucose readings. So there's your another option for you that's out there. It's not a super common test, so some doctors may not know about it, but it is available. It's readily available. Most labs will be able to run it for you. So
Yeah, I hope that's super helpful. That there are probably a lot of people out there that have some concerns about anemia. And also, I think that with what Kylie's saying, is it's great advice for all of us to remember that we're allowed to ask for what we need. We're allowed to go to our doctors and say, I need more than this, or I'm interested in this lab. I want to learn more about my body. That's a good thing. And any doctor should respond in a really immediate and encouraging way.
mm-hmm. Absolutely. I totally agree. And, if your doctor says that they're not going to order that test, then it's okay to get another opinion, get another doctor who will help you with that. Okay. Well, that was a great question. And thank you so much for writing that in. That was really fun for us to think about and help problem solve. So keep those questions coming in the email. We also were checking out some of the videos that were posted on YouTube, and there were some questions and comments there that we've been looking at. And one of the questions that came in was having to do with green peas and canned sweet corn. And they're asking, is this good for diabetics? And, also just sort of as like a bigger topic, which is about nutrition labels and looking at food labels. I think this is something that, especially from your point of view, you might really love to sink your teeth into, Lauren.
I think for those of us that have had the conversation about starchy vegetables, back off on the starchy vegetables and do more of, I don't know what we're calling something else. I think of Here's how I like to first of all think of this in more positive language is vegetables like cucumbers, tomatoes, zucchini, green beans. I think of them as water heavy. They're still nutritious. They're still vitamin rich and highly beneficial, but they are lower in calories. So there's the lesson in nutritional density is if we eat a whole bunch of water heavy veggies, we're going to feel stuffed, but we probably won't take in as many calories as we need. What is labeled as starchier just means that there's more carbohydrate per portion. And if we think about peas, sweet corn, sweet potatoes, your regular red potatoes, sometimes squash can be in this category depending on the type of squash. And these foods are still highly nutritious, they're highly beneficial. And there could be some advantages to timing these foods for people at a time of the day when you are seeing better results with sensitivity. A lot of people with diabetes notice that blood sugar sensitivity is greater as the day goes on. So in the morning, you may not want to just sit down and eat corns and peas because you're seeing a really quick reaction in your blood sugar. But this is also something to not immediately, if you've done this once and you thought this is bad, I'm never doing it again, we don't really want to look at one incident with healthy food and suddenly feel like that was a bad reaction. That was a bad thing. I have to eliminate it. There's really an interesting thing that happens over time. As you know, Kylie, with eating, even let's just extend this into the realm of beans and whole grains, which can be super intimidating also when you're tracking blood sugar, is that insulin sensitivity takes time. And there are benefits that we can see right away. But if we're really trying to track and reverse things, it doesn't happen overnight. Insulin resistance didn't happen overnight. So the foods themselves are not a problem alone. Peas, corn, they get labeled that way, but they are nutritious. They do provide benefit. There's a way to work with them strategically. Do not rule them out. And as carbohydrate experts, as we are in this field of greens, this field of vegetables, is working with a coach that understands that is really my best answer is to, if you get one-on-one with someone, have an extended conversation about what the variety of your nutrition looks like and not just one food at a time that ends up getting demonized incorrectly.
Absolutely. Well, and just to expand on that a little bit too, peas and corn are on our green light list. So if you could just find our green light list, print it out, it's on our website. They are green light foods. That means like a traffic light means go, green means go. And so that means you get to eat these foods in abundance. Now, one of the trickier things about packaged foods, so, the thing about green light foods that comes to mind for me is that these are foods that are found in nature, right? They grow from the ground. So when you go to the grocery store and you're in the produce aisle and you pick up some apples, there's no like nutrition label saying what ingredients are added because it's the only ingredient is an apple, right? So you don't get all the listed ingredients. But when you move into the other aisles of the grocery store, like the packaged department, the canned foods or the frozen foods department, that's where you're going to see foods in those aisles with more listed ingredients, right? And in particular, sometimes with vegetables, they'll add things like salt, oil, or sugar even. So one of the things, if you're buying canned vegetables, canned beans are fabulous, fabulous additions and part of a green light diet. But just be aware that sometimes you have to read those nutrition labels a little bit and be mindful of the fact that there's possibly added salt, sugar, or oil. And if you're trying to reverse insulin resistance, that addition of oil could interrupt your process. So we want to try to eliminate those things. So just look for one ingredient on the can: peas, corn. That's it. When you've got that, you know that that's the best option for you. Same thing in the frozen food aisle. A lot of maybe not straight up frozen vegetables, but like sometimes the frozen blends, like they have blends that have like added packets with seasonings. A lot of times they have salt, sugar, and oil added into those. So again, just buy your frozen vegetables. We stock our freezer with frozen corn and peas like on the weekly. We're using them so much. And, they're a great addition to great inclusion in a green light diet. So yeah, enjoy them.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And there's a strategy to transitioning to plant-based nutrition. It's a very new thing. And these are really great questions to ask because this is a question that so many people with different types of diabetes have had. And they want to know, how could some of these vegetables be off the okay list from my endocrinologist office, but they're on our green light list? Well, there are reasons for that. And we can certainly talk more about that. And I will give you an example too of just, I think it was last weekend, I bought a frozen package of roasted red pepper and onion. And I couldn't wait to make that because I wanted to combine it with something else that I had that was these different sets of beans and veggies. And I thought, oh, this is going to sound so good. And I just grabbed it out of the frozen section because I was just like, I don't want to buy and chop up green peppers right now. I want these fire roasted ones right now. And I should have taken a look at it, but when I made them, they just shriveled into like what I would call a single portion for a plant eater. They were just soaked in oil. And I just like, this is so unnecessary. Like, come on. But really that's the thing about packaged foods. So many of them will have an oil added, like a preservative. They have the sugars and the salts to keep them around for longer. So that is why the whole foods are so much more beneficial, because you know what you're working with and you can add your own flavors and spices. But this is just one of those things in the world of becoming a savvy, more informed grocery shopper. And I am the person at the grocery store in people's way. I read everything, but I didn't read the back of this one, and it kind of got me. So anyway, we just move on from it and try again.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah, and I love that you said that, being an informed consumer, an informed green light eater, how do we add these things in gradually, add these different tools in? I see another episode coming out for us on just nutrition labels and reading nutrition labels and shopping, grocery shopping, right? Grocery shop
Strategic
like a
grocery
pro.
shopping.
Yeah.
Ooh, strategic grocery shopping. If anyone digs that,
Yeah,
let us
give us some
know.
thumbs up on
Mm,
the on the pod.
mm.
Um, yeah, I think that's a great that would be a great topic. It's one that is very relatable for most people, and it's very easy to get confused by nutrition labels because they put fancy words like organic and healthy on there and confuses things. So, anyway, more to come on that, but yes, definitely adding peas and corn in is a great option. We have one more question here for today. And this person wrote, from their own experience, it's okay to eat a healthy amount of fruit as long as the diet is low in fat, no more than 15% of the total calories from fat. So that is exactly what we promote in our program. So this is great, off to a good start. And then they follow up with, up to what percentage of daily calories are recommended to come from fruit following the Mastering Diabetes approach? So this is like we're going to play numbers here. Do you have any thoughts on this to start out, or I'm happy to weigh in?
I want to expand it actually. My feeling is to expand the number into what our carbohydrate needs are in general, because we wouldn't want to just be eating fruit all day. We do need a variety of ingredients, just to fuel the microbiome, to fuel the environment inside of you, which is the simplest way to explain the microbiome is to fuel the environment inside of you. So to be eating just fruit, I want to just think about, okay, well, hold on a minute, because vegetables and beans and whole grains, this is the way that we want to be able to expand on the plant-based, whole food plant-based diet, is that it's about expansion, not restriction. Just want to say we're working with expansion here. So overall, I'll give you kind of just like, I'm going to give you my dietitian answer first of all, and then I'm going to let you, Kylie, kind of go into here's what we have found. And 45% as a standard is a minimum for carbohydrate intake. And I'm very confident in saying this because I notice some people will say that 45% sounds like too much. But quite honestly, when we look at what someone's nutritional needs are with carbohydrates, protein, and fat based on the body that they live in, this doesn't have anything to do with having a chronic condition like diabetes. We run macronutrient needs based on the human being that you are, not because somebody on social media convinced you that low carb is what you have to do to get perfect glucose numbers. Or maybe it was your clinic that did that. That's not how this works. We feed the person, not the diabetes. We feed that person with a minimum of 45%, but upwards of 65% is where you're going to see daily recommended intakes typically falling so that people are well nourished. So that's the goal, well nourished. So of all the carbohydrates that we're eating, vegetables included, 45 to 65% is that standard. Where fruit falls is fruit in itself is going to contribute to that overall number based on your individual needs. And with mastering diabetes, we'll see carbohydrates even higher just because carbohydrates also contain protein. So we don't have to think too much as this separate entity. If you're eating carbohydrates and then you're eating really high protein meat substitutes, that's where there's kind of more of a division between carbohydrates and a protein when we think of, oh gosh, I got to have a meat substitute here. And that's kind of a transition food. So we can work with that. Other higher protein items like tofu, beans themselves, the thing is, they contain protein. We think of them as carbohydrates only, but we have to stop doing that because plant foods contain everything we need to be healthy individuals. And that's really where the art comes in about how to eat a fulfilling life with plants. So I may not be answering this too much into the specifics about fruit, but fruit is a part of the whole.
Absolutely. I love that you said that the art, and that's exactly what it sounds like this person's really asking for is like, how do I find the right strategy to make sure I'm making, I'm guessing it probably to make sure I'm meeting all of my needs, right? Nutritionally speaking, if you're eating from the green light list, and to your point with the microbiome, Dr. Dr. Will Bolsowitz, he's a gastroenterologist, and he says the more variety of plant foods you can put in your diet, the way better for your microbiome, right? So that's how your microbiome grows and heals and is improved. So that is ideal to get variety of fiber sources, really is what it comes down to. But what I can, when it comes to the types of foods that you're going to choose, if you love fruit and you can eat fruit at every meal, include it at every meal. I mean, if that's going to help you be a thriving human, like Lauren's saying, if it's going to help you live your best lifestyle and you're going to feel your best eating fruit at every meal, eat it at every meal. And if you want to go a couple of days with just eating fruit only, selectively choosing one food group for a short period of time is generally very, very healthy, especially when they're green light, right? When you do that for long, long, long periods of time, is it possible to miss out on certain nutrients? Yes. And we've even constructed what we call raw food challenges to help people optimize their insulin sensitivity using primarily fruit. I mean, there are definitely some vegetables in there, but it's primarily fruit in its raw form and just beautiful meals focusing on fruit forward. And one thing that, because we also love fruit here in this house, we probably eat fruit at every meal. For example, we'll use like oranges as an addition in a salad, or even, different fruits in a salad, strawberries, just to sweeten it up. It helps with adding a little bit of texture, flavor, changing the variety. We like to use what's in season. So especially in the winter months here, citrus is really big. So putting oranges in our salad works really well. And so you can construct a percentage up to your choosing, but let's not eliminate food groups from the green light category, because that's where you're going to balance out that fiber intake, right? That broad fiber from different food categories.
I like the idea of just bringing up the seasonal part about that, because we live in different climates. And I think for people to keep in mind, don't wait to take your vitamin C until you feel a cold coming on. Fruit is one of the best ways to have that continuously circulating through your body is immune support and immunity. Our gut, that's the center of our immunity, is really our digestive system. And it's important to feed that. That's what that nutrition is doing for you. And I'll admit, I eat more fruit since coming to work here as a coach than I did prior to that. I will fully admit that it's just more often. Well, the thing is I totally did. And the thing is I was always an apple a day kind of a person. And I like berries. I like blackberries and I like blueberries, but I'm buying twice the amount of berries as I was before. And I think it's just kind of giving myself like the space to like, why wasn't I eating more of this in the first place? It's not like I didn't want to. And I encountered that quite often with clients that I have is they like all of these foods. They just weren't eating them. So now literally you're given the green light. You're giving yourself the permission to just enjoy it a little bit more. But the nice thing about the recipes is it gives you the ideas of what you can actually put fruit in combination with greens, where you go to a restaurant and you might see like a pear salad or something like that, but you don't think about it after you leave. And I feel like that's where I will see fruit is in maybe restaurants that are a little bit more creative with their menu, is that all the recipes, and people can go on the website right now and look through them, all of the recipes that are just offered up on the website. And you're going to see how to use fruit in kind of really interesting, creative, strategic ways if you're feeling like it's boring or you just need the idea. And that's a great place to go to do it. But also treat it like if you're craving something sweet after you eat, like a lot of us do, fruit is your go to and you're combining it with other foods. So it's just a really great way to have a more comforting relationship with fruit if you're kind of intimidated with it, is to have it in combination with your meal. And then you can see how your blood sugar reacts to the collection of those foods you're digesting versus the fruit by itself, if that becomes something that's a little bit challenging.
The second part of the question was, what benefit do you get from eating fruit in combination with non-starchy vegetables? So, we did cover, you were just talking about, how you benefit in your microbiome and in your nutritional intake in general. But for people who live with any type of diabetes and you're monitoring your blood glucose, a lot of times what you'll see when you're adding non-starchy vegetables in, or in particular, raw greens, leafy greens, you will delay or slow down the absorption of glucose in your intestine, which slows down that blood glucose elevation pattern that you'll see. And if you're somebody who wears a CGM, you may sometimes be surprised to see the elevation after a meal. And sometimes those elevations can get higher than you'd like. And so adding non-starchy vegetables, adding raw greens can help to add more fiber and more water, like what Lauren was talking about earlier. And those two things will help to then slow down that quick glucose elevation that happens when you first start eating a high carbohydrate meal. And so it's a fabulous way to get in. It's also a great way to get in some of the nutrients that your body craves and benefits from, especially from raw greens. I mean, my goodness, again, we could do a whole episode on raw greens and the benefits and why they're so valuable for our overall health, not even having to do with diabetes, just for our humanness.
I think there's a trick in that too, Kylie, that people don't really pick up on it until they practice these kinds of meals, is that if you're eating some of these, two big handfuls of something like arugula, which has a peppery flavor to it. I just ate some last night that was really peppery. I had to cut it with like a different type of a green, but it slows you down. You end up eating a little bit slower. And that's kind of a trick, certainly, if you're getting into, if you just have kind of a combination of berries and you're trying to see how this actually flavors greens and you need a little bit of, um, you know, a little bit more texture to it, those greens are going to cause you to eat the fruit slower also. So they buy you time. That's the idea of also the soup and salad. I mean, eat the salad first, slow you down. It helps to work with your digestion and the rest of the foods that are coming in with it. Plus, you're getting such a great range of antioxidants, your plant sterols and stanols and all these great little fighters, literal fighters in your body when you combine foods like that. So without going into the super science of digestion, it is look at the color of that and know that every single color you have in that bowl is nutritiously beneficial in a very specific way.
Yes, absolutely. Love that. The color. Yes, look for color. Add as much as possible. Well, thank you so much for that. That was great. And thanks for the questions, you guys. This was fantastic. So yeah, this is great. Thank you so much for sending in your questions and for commenting on our videos. We will keep making them. We'll keep making content, and we love getting input and suggestions. So please keep your ideas coming our way. And don't forget to email us at team@masteringdiabetes.org. That's how we'll get your emails. Now you know it's true. We will get them. And keep sharing. We love to hear from you.
Thanks, everybody. You keep us going.
Yeah.
So let us know what you think.
Absolutely. Have a great day. Bye, Lauren.